Well, good morning. How are you all today? Welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I want to talk today about building your team. Other than the good Lord Himself, your team is the most important thing you have. And in whether it's in preparedness for disaster or in life today, in the day to day progress of your life. Uh, you choose between beans and bullets and band-aids and all that, and I'll take team every time, because if you don't have that, well, you don't have much. You're not going to last long. So let's talk about that. Somebody said, Steve, whenever you sit in that chair, that is a big chair. Yeah, you're right, man. It's what do they call it? A chair and a half. I love big chairs. I got this one so Kelly could sit in it with me. So how are you doing in this new America? This new America after Trump is, hey, the deportations have begun, and DEI, they have just he's just issued an order to put all DEI people in the government on paid leave, right? To figure out what they're going to do with them, and there's going to be a lot of dismiss. We will see, you know. But the thing is that whether or not they they are dismissed, they're not going to be working in DEI, and you see that's a realignment of the team. Okay, so let's get at this about a team. If you read my books, you know that this whole story of Stonemont, beginning with the first one, the reversion, is about a family who, as a result of their preparedness, was able to ride out, not just ride out, but continue living well after a total collapse of everything and help other people. That's really what you're after. And when we talk about preparedness, and you might think here that, well, if Biden's out of the White House and Trump's coming in, there might be better times ahead. Do we really need to be talking about preparedness? Yes, because preparedness, and especially developing your team, can have a drastic impact on your life. Okay, so in the Stonemont series, I showed how a family, even then with young children, was able to establish themselves, see themselves through hard times, and help other people. Now I'm going to start here because many people, when they think about building a team, they think about, well, your MAGs, right? Mutual assistance groups, things like that. I have never been a proponent of MAGs. If you've been with me anytime at all, I've never been a proponent of developing pre-collapse groups specifically designed for preparedness or to be together after the collapse of whatever. I don't believe. The reason that I don't believe in that, and I've explained this before, is because when you do that, you're looking for people with specific interests. And so you might be getting people together who, yeah, they're all afraid of the collapse of society, of the government, of the economic system, whatever it is. And so you're getting a lot of people with that one specific interest in common. And we've seen, and I've never been a part of a MAG because I've understood this for a long time, uh, for the very reason that after a while, you're going to have problems because the different aspects of the people will start to bubble to the surface, and you'll find that not everybody has the same values, not everybody has the same expectations, egos get involved, and all sorts of things. And everybody that I've talked to who has been involved in a so-called MAG, for the most part, a lot of them have been involved in several. And I said, well, what happened? Oh, this guy and these people split and there were problems within the group. Yeah, that's right. You're going to have problems in groups that are not held together by common values and principles. And that's why there may be some groups, and I would say probably religious based, that are brought together pre-collapse, But there's problems there also. I won't get into that. I'll start with the people who are fortunate enough to still have young kids at home. And by young, you take it all. I mean, my oldest is 18, then I got a 14 and a 13. So I'm still in this area of building the team. Your first team is your family. And people, when they get into preparedness, they don't think about that. Matter of fact, preparedness can cause problems in families because if one person, be it the husband or the wife, gets all enamored with preparedness, a lot of times it takes away from the family unit because they start putting, so much time, money, energy into the preparedness that it kind of makes the other people feel left out. And then it takes away from the cohesiveness of the family. And the problem there is while you think you're preparing, you're actually destroying your team, or at least putting cracks in that team. And you don't want to do that. Your family, under the guidance of the good Lord, is your number one team. Now, many people I know are beyond this, and their children have left home. They're out doing other things. And so you can't approach it in the same way, but there are some things that you can do, and I hope you will do, to kind of re-solidify that primary team of yours, which is your family. Families are interesting, right? There are families and there are families, and a lot of most of that comes down to whether the parents their first priority was to develop a strong family. And here again, I will always say, under the guidance and blessing of the good Lord. The family, they'll have their squabbles. They'll have this, they'll have that. You'll have slamming doors as they grow up. But if they are in a situation, it's I suppose kind of like the military. People come out of their basic training or their boot camp with certain things in common. Because those things have been reinforced in a daily manner until they become habit. And the same with a family. It takes longer. And hopefully, you're not screaming at them all the time. But over the years, they come to form a common set of values and principles, and that is what creates a strong family. I grew up in a don't worry, this is all about building your team. I grew up in a very affluent area. Well, let me put it this way. I grew up in a very working class, or a lower middle class area, surrounded by a very affluent area. Okay, I went to a very rich high school, and I wasn't at all those in my neighborhood, but we had the opportunity to go to great schools. And I saw the difference at a very early age. And then I had friends who were much more working class. And when I talk about this, I'm not talking about the superiority or inferiority of classes versus classes. I'm gonna talk to you about what I saw in the families. And you might think when I say these things that the people in the lower socioeconomic group valued their families more because the rich people, they're all about themselves. Not at all the case. And I know that this lesson will irritate some, but it shouldn't, because it's a good lesson. And I saw that there was a difference between people. Most of the lower socioeconomic groups raised their kids to be independent. And what I mean by that was, well, Dad was doesn't matter what he was a worker, he was a this, he was a that, and when as the kids grew up, they got out of high school, they turned 18, and they just thought, well, okay, you're on your own now. Okay, you're on your own. I've raised you till you're 18, and now you go make a life of yourself, of your own, And there's kind of this underlying, my dad didn't give nothing to me, and I'm not giving nothing to you. You go out there and start it on your own. And so as a result of that, each generation is starting from scratch, starting all over again. I saw that there was a big difference between that. Now, once you get, if you get into skilled trades, there was a difference there, definitely a difference there. If the father was a carpenter, uh, or even a plumber or whatever, a lot of times, they taught their kids from early, and they brought them into their, if they owned a business. Now, if they worked for somebody, it was different. Okay, but if they started their own company and they brought their kids into the company, that was a world of difference. They were building their team. Okay, as opposed to these other families that kind of fragmented. Okay, well, okay, you got 4 kids, and I've raised them, and now they're all out doing other things, and many times they've moved away, away from, not just out of the house, but away from home. They're across the country, whatever. And what that has done is that has cost the strength of the family. The strength of the family has not been retained. Uh, as I saw the affluent families, and I mean rich, uh, I saw a big difference. Many of them owned, most of them probably owned their own companies, unless they were lawyers, in which case they were managing partners or whatever. And very often their kids would follow along in the law business and then go into that partnership. But other than that, many of them owned the companies, the businesses that built Kansas City, and and they were very, their kids were raised to think family first, family business, family first. And no, they weren't at all. They weren't selfish. They weren't standoffish. They went to church just like we did. They believed in the same things. They gave a buttload of money to uh, charities and things like that. They were good people, but they raised their kids to understand that what they had done, what the parents had done, or the founders of the companies or whatever, what they had done was to give the next generation a step up. So the next generation was not starting from scratch like I saw my my other lower uh, economic class. They weren't less people. They weren't lower people. They were lower on the economic scale. So that they were starting from scratch every generation, but the affluent people were not. They were building a business, and then when the next generation came along, those kids went into the business and they continued. They lived very well. They had the benefits of all the work that was done by previous generations, and they had the education, and they had they'd been involved in the business and all that. Uh, and then they went on and continued to build those companies for themselves and for their kids and for continuing generations. And when they do that, and this is why I've said before, and people get a little irritated with me, well, some people just get downright mad, is that many rich people are the best preppers. This is why. It's because they have established a lineage. They have established a group, a team, a tribe, whatever you want to call it, that is not dependent on the government or anybody else. They provide everything they need. Economic. I mean, these rich people, they live in mansions. They don't have a farm. They don't have chickens. I know they don't have goats. But, this is a different type of preparedness. They can go out and buy all they want, right? But these people were developing the team. And so my suggestion is now to understand. Now, one of my primary goals as I raise my kids is to the sun's coming up and it's glaring. Can you see that? Is to raise my kids to understand that they are a team. We are a team. That's why one of the main reasons that I continue certain businesses. Okay. Yeah, I'm a writer. I could rely on my writing to support the family, but I don't. I have other businesses that we build. Why? Because those are family businesses. Those are the businesses that will be passed on to my kids and hopefully my grandkids and all that. And that they will not only benefit from, but they will build. They will be a part of. They won't have to rely on Joe Blow hiring them. They're going down there and say, "Do you have any job openings?" They're not going to have to look for job opening unless they want to. They might decide to. But as I build this, to make the family the cohesive, the center of the gravity, right? That holds them together, supports them, and all that. This is the team. Now, if you're and some of the favorite things that we like to do is go on trips together, or just go out to eat. It's just I heard I had a friend of mine some years ago trying to get me to get my oldest son in Cub Scouts, and and I was kind of resistant to it because I mean I had a good time in scouting, but it had changed over the years, and I didn't care about it putting him in Scouts. And my friend said, "Listen, this is what." Well, there were two things. I'll just say the second one. He said, somebody told him, and he was on his second family. The first family, he was a lawyer. He hadn't spent the time that he should have probably with his family, and as a result, he was now on his second family. He was trying to do a better job with his second family. And he says, in a few years, your son are going to be paying more attention to other men than to you. And don't you want a good group of other men around to help and to be, mentors and to help you and all that?" And I thought that was a very sad situation, because I tell you what, it speaks to a certain maybe kind of family structure. But I said, and I thought to myself, I think I might have said to him, come to think of it, I said, "Well, I want my kids to look to me as the one that affects them." I said, "I look to my father. He looked to his father. And my children will look to me. They will pay more attention to me because they will have seen me exhibit those things that I say are important, those principles, those values, those things. And no, I don't need other men to help me raise my kids." One of the saddest things I ever heard, I know this is going to all different places, but there's lessons here. One of the saddest things I ever heard is when I was still on the street. And this guy had, I stopped by a house. This guy had just gotten out of the joint, just got out of prison. And I stopped by, and I knew everybody in my district. I mean, that's the way that I ran it. I knew who was in jail, who was out of jail, who was this, who was that. I knew who belonged to all the kids, and hopefully who the kids belonged to. And this one guy, I stopped by his house, and he came out to I know what it was. Yeah, I stopped by. There was a group of kids, and I just drove up and stopped for a minute, started chatting with him. This guy comes out of the house, and I had known him. I'd known him. He'd been away for a couple of years in prison, and he came out, and he said hi. I said hi, and after the kids ran off, he said, "Well," he says, "I just wanted to." He says, "My son has told me about you." And he says, "And I'm just glad that he has men like you to look up to." And I thought, man, if that's not the saddest things I've ever heard. And I don't remember if I said anything to him or not, but my thought was he should have you to look up to. It should be the family. It should not be the rest of the world. Each generation should not be out there scrapping for the scraps the world will give them. Each family should be supported. Each child should be supported by the family, and then they become a part of that team. Now, a lot of people. So if you're fortunate enough to still have young kids at home, realize that the greatest thing you can do, both for your preparedness and for the future of your kids, is to to build that team. Okay. Be aggressive in it. Build that team. That is your most important preparedness activity. If you're beyond that and your kids are gone, whatever, and you haven't, that just didn't work out that way for you, I would suggest that you try to realign that if you can, and you might not be able to. I get it. You might not be able to, and I just hope that you have good relations with your kids. But if you can, your family is the main. It is the team that God designed. It is the God designed team. It's the most important team, if you can swing it. And so if your kids, and maybe you got grandkids, if they're kind of spread out, that's too bad, because what would happen if everything crashes, like in my books, right? They're all spread out. You got a kid in Pennsylvania, and you got a kid in Northern California, and another one down in Florida, and well, yeah, they're doing all right. They're making their way. Well, just think about how much better they might be doing, if they'd really had that family team supporting them. I don't know, and I'm certainly not disparaging anyone whose family is like that, because life is tough, man. I mean, no, raising kids is tough. Life is tough, and when you're trying to do it all, it's in some cases it can seem almost impossible. Or some of us, I tell people, you all know that I was older before I started my family. I didn't get married till I was 50. I didn't have my first kid till I was 52. So yes, I'm looking at it from a different perspective. And I tell many of my friends, I said, the good Lord knew what he was doing when he didn't let me get married and have kids when I was younger, because I'll be honest, I'm afraid I would have sucked as a father. I'm afraid I would have. I would not have seen the importance of this, of building the family and the team. And it's only by seeing a lot of stuff over the years and seeing all my friends through their, shall we say, lack of, well, a lot of them were very successful according to the world, right? But their families were a mess. And mine probably would have been too if I'd gotten married earlier. So I'm looking back, I'm looking at a perspective I understand from a very much older person. But the good Lord helped me and my family out by making me wait. So I understand, that it can be tough, especially when you're raising kids when you're younger, and a lot of people will have regrets, and they'll look back and say, well, I wished I'd done that better. We all do, right? But what I'm saying here is that your family is the first team. Like I said, it's the God-designed team. God said, this is your team. And I would simply say that if you're still in the position to do it, make sure that you're giving the attention and the support and the energy into that team. Build that team. Because it doesn't matter whether the world falls apart or not. And I'll give you an example of this. I will give you a prime example. Look at the Trump family. My gracious, have you ever seen a family of more adept people than them? This I don't care what you think of the Trumps. This is an amazing family, and they are together, right? They are tight. They back each other up, as others, not with pardons. So make sure that you understand the importance of your family team, and if you're raising them, do your best with that in mind. If they're already kind of gone, I I'd suggest and I pray for you that you can kind of, whether or not you're able to bring them back together, uh, locally or not, because if they've pursued their own interests, they're pursuing their own interests. You can't just say, "Hey, we're going to change plans here now. Let's all come back to the family compound." No, just make it so that strengthen the bonds, so that they know that you are their nucleus. You are the one who's always there, right? And I don't care how old they are, it will be important to them. And so whatever happens, like I say, whether it's the collapse of the world or whether it's just the world keeps going on, you're going to be building something stronger than if you don't. For not just your kids, but future generations. Okay. So I know that this didn't seem much probably to a lot of people like a preparedness video, but it is the ultimate preparedness video. I mean, think about this. If the world fell apart and you had your choice of what you could have with you, either your guns and your beans and your rice and all that, or your family, which would you choose? Okay? Hey, God bless every one of you in developing or strengthening your teams, because that's what it takes. And you put him in the middle of it, it's going to work out better than if you try to do it yourself. Okay? All right. Build your team. And remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and there's no better preparation than that. All right? You all have a great day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.